Government and Philanthropy working together to help Flint recover and rise. Please welcome Lieutenant Governor, State of Michigan, Brian Calley. Mayor, City of Flint, Karen Weaver. President of Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, Ridway White. MiWeek anchor, Detroit Public Television, Christy McDonald.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. It's great to see everyone. Usually I've been parked at the desk out in the parlor of the Grand Hotel, anchoring a lot of the coverage for this, so it's nice to actually get out here into the main theater and to see a lot of your faces. When I got asked to moderate this panel, a couple of thoughts came to my mind about some questions that I think a lot of people would like the answers to. And the first question that really came to my mind is just, where are we today in Flint? What's going on in Flint? It also came to mind talking about health, infrastructure, investment, and the future. And so that's what I hope that we get to accomplish now here in this next 35 minutes, which I know is something we could go for a much longer time. But I just want to start off, actually, Mayor Weaver, with you. And if you could just give us a sense and idea of how people in Flint are doing right now.
Well, you know, what's going on in Flint right now is there is some progress being made. People can say, did it happen quickly enough? No, but things are moving forward. One of the good things that just happened not too long ago is we got the request for proposals out. So we're going to continue with the Fast Start program and getting those lead service lines replaced. I think people needed to see that happen because we've been so focused on the issue of water. And people have also asked, when are you going to look at some other things? Well, we had to see something concrete happen, and that's happening. And the other thing I have to say with those requests for proposals is it took us a little bit longer to get them out, but there was a reason for that, because we wanted to make sure we could have make things in smaller sections or components. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology, but we wanted to level the playing field so some of the smaller businesses could take part in this, because economic development is going to be crucial to us sustaining ourselves and seeing this recovery that we want to have happen in Flint. And so we made the parcels smaller, and we're hoping that the local people, some of them can bid on these things and get to work and moving Flint forward. So that's what's going on. That's one of the things going on. And economic development, that's what we're ready to talk about.
And I think that's going to be absolutely a key going forward. Give me a sense, though, of the mood when people are talking to you, when they're stopping to you on the street, from what it was a couple of months ago to today, or has it changed at all?
They needed to see some things, and they're seeing that. One of the other things they're seeing is they're seeing public and private come together to make some things happen, and that's really been good. The Mott Foundation has stepped up big time. Some of the other private philanthropic groups have stepped up, and they see us working together to make a difference with what's going on in Flint. One of the things we've also seen, and Lieutenant Governor and I have talked about the dam project that's going on and putting a new face on the Flint River and what that's going to mean to the community. So people are hopeful. One thing we want people to know, and the people of Flint would be upset if I didn't say that we're very resilient. And while we know something bad has happened, we know this is an opportunity for us to make something really, really positive happen. And if we don't take this opportunity, then we have failed a second time. And so we're excited about that because we have the possibility and the potential to really put Flint on the map for some different things now. And that's what we want to do. We hope people are learning from what happened in Flint. We hope people are looking at, not only in the state of Michigan, but across the country, when you talk about what's going on with infrastructure and what happens as a result of not investing in infrastructure and maintaining that and looking at water quality standards. So we hope that we're also going to be a lesson for other people to learn from Flint, but we want to be the model for people to come back. We don't want the media to go away, because we know in Flint we're going to have a part 2 to our story, and we will be on the map for some other things. So we want to be a model for not only other urban cities around the state of Michigan, but for the country in general.
All right, and I hope we can get into talking about how you can be that example. But Lieutenant Governor Calley, I want to ask you, you have been sort of, I guess, the face of the administration, really, of the state, being in Flint now, spending about, what, 3 days a week, 4 days a week in Flint. How has that been for you? Because I can imagine when you first started going there, it was in terms of navigating relationships, and she's starting to smile and laugh. So talk to me about what the relationship is now that you have with people in the city of Flint in working there 3 times a week.
Well, understandably, on the front end of it, there was a fair amount of skepticism.
But what I've found is that it's a community that when you keep coming back and you prove yourself useful, that skepticism does fall away. And the other thing I'll say that even though I've lived my life without a lot of intersections with the city of Flint, where I was, where I did most of my growing up, where I went to school, where I had my private sector career, it wasn't in and around Flint. But it's a community that has a lot to work with, and really one that's easy to fall in love with. So whereas I started in the beginning looking at it as really wanting to be engaged in creating a better future for the city, it's turned into something different now, which is just a place that, when you see the type of potential that it has, I want to be able to look back on this time and say that this was a real turning point for the city. Out of tragedy came a success story, the sort of thing that we can look back at and say, not only did we build an agenda that benefited the rest of the state in terms of dealing with the underground infrastructure and some of the issues that can just be there for a long time, and people get used to them being there because they've been there so long. But to really use this as motivation to change that, and then but then to look back and say that this city and the people in the city have more opportunity today than in the past, and anything short of that is just not good enough.
And I think it's going to be quite a road, and I think it's going to take a lot of different components, and part of that component would also be foundation work. So Ridway, I want to bring you into the conversation. You became president of the C.S. Mott Foundation about a year and a half ago, right when the crisis in Flint was really starting to unfold. And obviously, though, the foundation and you had been working with the city for so long before that, but did that have any kind of impact on you in terms of you making decisions or the foundation making decisions as this crisis unfolded and you just taking over at that time?
Sure. Well, we've been in Flint for 90 years. It's our home community. And we realized that I actually was in the office for a year prior to the crisis. And so the first year, I jokingly say, the first year was easy. The second year has been a lot of work. But it's been a lot of opportunity that I think I'm seeing. And working with the governor, lieutenant governor, and the mayor on trying to recover and rise from this crisis has been at the core of our mission.
I can only imagine, though, it's pretty overwhelming to say, okay, well, how do we help out? How do we even jump in where it makes sense? What are those conversations like?
You're right. There's no magic pill for solving a water crisis or a lead crisis. But for lack of a better word, they're sort of doubling down. And the Mott Foundation has focused on building education and the nonprofit community. And the nonprofit community was one of the first responders in this crisis. When there were a lot of chaos going on, United Way, Community Foundation, all of them came in and stepped up and said, we're here to help and to ease the struggling of the community. So with the philanthropy, we were partnered with the state when we heard it and switched back to Detroit. We granted $4 million. The state put in $6 million, the city put in $2 million, and that was an immediate response. And then we sat back and said, all right, how can we bring philanthropy really together and focus on really connecting to the individuals and making sure the lives are better. And so we came up with the Recover and Rise initiative, which is a $125 million pledge to the community from philanthropy, and the number is still growing. Mott Foundation pledged $100 million over the next 5 years, $50 million this year alone, just for the water crisis.
Which is a significant number. I want to talk a little bit about infrastructure, because I think that's the next thing on people's minds. It's like, well, we still have people that are drinking filtered water in Flint. We still have people who are drinking bottled water in Flint. You can't turn on the tap and just get a glass of water just yet in the city. So people are looking at, when can that happen? And where are we in terms of replacing pipes? And I'm going to start with you, Lieutenant Governor.
So as the mayor had mentioned, this is a big week. The RFP is going out, and people are going to be able to see the actual construction happening, which is, I think, is really going to do a lot to lift the spirits among people in the city. The work that was done earlier than that was really about the recoating of the pipes, which Dr. Mark Edwards had indicated what is important to have a certain amount of that happen before you start replacing pipes, so you don't inadvertently cause a relapse in lead poisoning cases. And so the good news is tests are showing that coating process has been working. Recently, though, there has been what I consider to be a very strong success in a partnership between the the city and a lot of organizations in the city and the state and a flushing campaign to just get more water running through the system so that there's less stagnation. You can get all the particulate matter, the little particles that get hung up somewhere, get them flushed out of the system, accelerate the coating process, and then at the same time, though, while people are doing this, to ensure that they know that their whole water bill for that month when when we were asking for the flushing, that was paid, not just the 65%, but the whole water portion of the bill. And so that's just an example of how far we've come in that. In the partnerships that have developed over the course of the last several months. And I will say, too, is even though it might seem strange that I'm not sitting here, I just want to make it really clear. So I don't like there to be space between the mayor and I. And there is... point taken, with no taken.
That's right.
Relationships, relationships take work, but one thing I'll say about this mayor is that her passion is one of the things that inspires me when it comes, to come into a community where I'm a guest. But it inspires me to work hard. I look at my work on the job in Flint is to make sure that the mayor and her team, I'm doing everything that I can do to make sure that the mayor and her team are successful.
All right, so I want the mayor to talk to us a little bit then about the pilot program for replacing the pipes. How many pipes have you replaced, and what is the next order for more?
Okay, can I say something about what he just said also?
Absolutely.
Because somebody just asked me today about this relationship thing and said, it seems like things started off really smoothly at first and then there's some tension, so what's going on now? And what I wanted them to know was, anytime you're working together, there's going to be some rough spots. It doesn't mean that we're not continuing to move forward and that we're not going to work together. And that some things, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, we have common goals, and this is a people issue, and so we are committed to working together for Flint. But when we talk about the program, one of the things, and you talked about the Fast Start program, because this isn't an overnight solution, what we've had to do is prioritize. And so we know that we have kids that have homes that have pregnant women or kids under the age of 6, or some homes where they have just tested extremely high or compromised immune system. So that's what the Fast Start program is, and that's where we want to get started. And we've identified about 15,000 either lead and or galvanized lines that we want to get replaced.
So you've identified that many. Are there
Correct.
more out there that you're not even sure are there, though?
Right. There are more. We don't have all of the data yet, but we have enough to get started with, and that's what we're doing.
Ridway, let me ask you, you talked about the $125 million and the $100 million is specifically that CS Mott is putting into this. How do you then go ahead and break down and say, where is all that funding going to go, and plug in holes that maybe government, local government, state government can't plug?
Sure. Well, the dollars are really designed to complement what the state government's doing, what the city's doing. That said, there are going to be gaps. And so we're focused on 6 initiatives: water system safety, health, education, nutrition, that's probably under health, community engagement, capacity building, and economic recovery. And so covering a broad gamut, but again, it's all of those things that it's going to take to, allow Flint and its residents to really succeed. And, our founder said that every community or every person is in an informal partnership with their community. And so we need to figure out how, with this crisis, to really engage every citizen and bring them into the equation and engage them in a way that they feel a part of the solution. And I think the mayor's been an amazing spokesperson for getting out in the community, getting people excited. And so, we're hoping to use, the mayor, some of her tools to really, get down to the grassroots in our philanthropy and our giving.
I think it's interesting you use the word get people excited, and I think it would also be getting people to trust. Because when you talk about this is a relationship, and a relationship that the state has to have with the local city, and that the state has with all of its cities in the state of Michigan and its residents, knowing that we can feel that we can trust what's happening in our government. So it feels right now that Flint, that people have to learn to trust again, and that's not something that you can pay for, and that is not something that can be easily bought. Lieutenant Governor, let me ask you, how do you feel that the state has done in starting to restore trust, and what do you think that can be done further to restore trust from the citizens of Flint?
Well, the first thing when we're in the immediate break of trust like that has happened in Flint, borrowing trust from other people is a really important first step. In other words, as we went to build the healthcare response and the impact on children, that rather than the state just coming up with plans, we took Dr. Mona's outline of needs and used that to build our plans. When it came to the steps in terms of what we wanted the support to the water infrastructure and the order of things that had to happen, is to really take the recommendations from Dr. Edwards and to put them into action so that people didn't have to just trust the state, but could look to some of these other entities that they had more history with or more positive history with. But then as we move forward, I think building consensus is really important. So when it comes to water tests, for example, and there's a lot of different entities that are out there doing water tests, and the EPA had recently called all the different agencies together to share information and have essentially a data confab and to come to consensus. Where do things stand today? So no one entity has to be trusted, but you look for a consensus across a broad range of entities. And so you just over time, you start building more experience and things can normalize, but it's not the sort of thing that we should expect to be a magic, wand can make it happen overnight. Something has to be earned back over time. And so I know that we're in it for the long haul. I know that, and I have a lot of confidence in the mayor's team and with partners like Mott. By the way, practically every meeting I'm in Flint, and there's some sort of a gap in it, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, Mott might be able to help with that. But it just shows you how great a partner that they've been over the course of the generations, and how important that is now in order to make sure that there aren't any gaps that are left over in the end.
Mayor Weaver, address trust. A new poll came out today that said 70% of people in Flint still aren't sure that they can trust they can drink the filtered water. How would you piggyback a little bit on what the Lieutenant Governor said? Or is it really they have to see holes in the ground, they have to see digging, they have to see the replacement starting to say something is happening here?
I do believe that, because one of the things, and I don't know if it was so much I don't trust this filter, but it was, if we do these things, are you still going to replace pipes? So that was a lot of the issue, and so that's why they did need to see that happening. They needed to see holes in the ground and see new pipes going in. That was really, really important. The other thing is seeing us working together will help build some trust, and then letting people see that when we say, we don't like this or this needs to change, and it happens. That's another way to build trust. One of the things we complained about was we had the National Guard come in. Well, we needed the National Guard initially to come in because we needed to get that jump started. We needed to get the water bottles out there. We needed to get the filters handed out. But then we realized, we have a struggling city, and we could be paying some of our own people to do these services, and not only pay them to do the delivery service, but we could hook them up with the plumbers and the pipe fitters and get them in an apprenticeship program where they're getting paid and getting a skill that hopefully they'll stay in Flint, but they can take this skill anywhere and be a contributing member to their community. And so when they heard us voice that, and the state said, you're right, we're going to pull them out so we can get this implemented. And that was the Flint Water Works program that we started. So when they see those kinds of things happening, that builds trust as well.
Ridway, people say, well, maybe government should be paying for all of this. Foundations shouldn't have to step in and augment programs. What do you see as the real role of your foundation in Flint right now?
I mean, we've definitely taken the stance that the pipe replacement, the water infrastructure is the government's responsibility. But, we've been in Flint, as I said, for 90 years. We can't just stand back and say, okay, we're going to let everybody else do this. So I think it takes a team, it takes a community quotient to really bring it together and have meaningful change. And we've been dealing with some of these issues for a long, long time. And it is going to be a relatively it's going to be a path out that's not going to happen overnight. But I think that if we can take the resources that the state's talking about bringing, the philanthropy, bringing the team of other foundations that have stepped in and said, I'm willing to give dollars, but I'm also willing to give my resources in terms of my program officers, my grantee networks, et cetera, to help Flint. So I think it takes a team. There's a lot of business leaders here. I think if you come to Flint, you find a group of people that are willing to listen, willing to help, willing to work with you and provide success. And we are a strong community. We've had our challenges. But we're like the little engine that could, right? That's why you do all the child time stories of, maybe you're a little slow, maybe you're less, but if you're steady, we can make progress.
Go ahead.
I wanted to piggyback, if I could, on the mayor had talked about the waterworks, and as the Michigan National Guard, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude for the work that they did. And now those jobs have been transferred over to people in Flint, and they're doing an outstanding job. The people that have taken over these jobs, the water distribution jobs and filters and cartridges, water bottles, and so forth. I visited several of the water points of distribution, and just in each case, and I was just thinking, just the other day, day before yesterday, when I was at one, and there's a man that was working. He said, he told me I've been out of work for a long time. And this opportunity came up. I'd been wanting to be a part of the recovery effort here. I wanted to help my city get back on its feet, and now I have this opportunity to provide for my family too. And it's just, I wanted to thank you for that opportunity. To me, it was first of all, I mean, even though I wasn't involved in emergency management, that sort of thing in the past, it was a really powerful moment for a person to have found opportunity, even in all of that tragedy, and that really is inspirational to look at all of the different ways that the recovery efforts are being deployed, and how can we make sure that we double the benefit of it. So not only is it a recovery effort that is dealing with mitigating or dealing with whatever ramifications of the water crisis itself, but out of that we find opportunity for people that have been locked out of opportunity for a long time.
And I think economic opportunity for the city of Flint is also going to be part of a very large next chapter of how the city recovers. I want to go through some numbers with you first, though, if we could, in talking about investment, because it all does come down to money. And when we hear there's a budget shortfall and everyone freezes and says what's going to get cut, right now that there's still, $128 million on the table for Flint, waiting to get that, correct?
The good news is that the legislature, even though the revenue estimates were scaled back, still an increase over last year, but scaled back from what we had estimated in January, largely because of gas prices had come down so much over the previous few cycles of revenue estimating confabs. And so the legislature, though, has agreed with the governor's request and has kept that intact. So even though we've had to scale back in other areas, that this was something that everybody agreed was a priority, which is a good sign that that you have people from across the state, from places that they don't get any political benefit of being for, helping for this to happen in terms of the recovery effort in Flint, but feel either a sense of responsibility or just a sense of community, that we're all Michiganders. And in a situation like this, we need to put politics aside and to make sure that the obligations are met and we create a better future.
And I think, though, in the long term, though, people are looking at investment in cities, because I know that the governor had talked about $165 million for infrastructure for other areas in the state, and that maybe has had to take a sidebar to some budgetary issues. So it's also where are we going to go in the larger plan? Is there a plan for urban centers and how we invest in them so that a Flint doesn't happen again somewhere in our state?
And that's why it's so important that economic development be a part of the recovery efforts. And we have to be careful to make sure that the economic development is the kind of development that can help people that actually live in the areas that the development is happening in. And this is not a unique thing for Flint. This is something that urban communities across the landscape of America really struggle with. So, but when it comes to the longer term infrastructure issues, which is a problem in rural and urban communities, that's what the 21st Infrastructure Commission is all about, is to develop those plans. We'd like for the state to be strong partners in it, but why don't we go ahead and just work together to make Flint the model, right? I mean, we have an opportunity here to not just deal with the water crisis itself, but to show, what it really looks like for a community to have the infrastructure needs met at an optimal level. And so it's a tough goal. It's a target that's going to be difficult to reach, but let's go ahead and reach for the optimal as opposed to just settling.
Mayor Weaver.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, because one of the things we are really excited about, I believe, is while we're getting these things and they're happening as a result of the water crisis that we were in, we know that we're putting things that are in place that are sustainable. And these are things that would be good for all communities. And that's what's important, and that's what's going to make it last and work for the city of Flint.
You said that people were, as you were walking through the Grand Hotel, people were asking you a lot of questions, and that someone said to you, what are the two things that you want for Flint? And you told them?
I said, pipes and jobs. I said, we've really got to look at, and we're getting the pipes going, but economic development, because that's what's going to keep us. People in Flint want to work. So I don't want people to think, sometimes it's like, do they want to work? Or is that a group of lazy people in the city of Flint because the factories are gone? People want to work, and people don't want to leave. They want to stay home. We love Flint. We believe in it, and now we see the possibility and the potential of what can happen in the city of Flint. It's really hard not to get excited about it. Some people have said, why are you excited? Why are you happy? But it is because I see the possibility. I can drive past a place that's torn down or doesn't look so good and say, wow, I know what we could have there. But we need companies to come in. We need people to invest in Flint and believe as strongly in Flint as we do. And as we get these pipes going and we talk to people and we have these kinds of partnerships going with the philanthropic groups and the public sector, we know that Flint's a good place. We've got a lot of resources. We've got, our colleges and universities. We've got our hospitals. We've got, Bishop Airport. We've got the railways, and we've got a lot of land that's available to make some really, really good things happen in Flint.
And so in the philanthropic community, Ridway, you're able to kind of bridge a lot of the gaps and be able to bring over what Mayor Weaver's working on, saying, look, I know 5 other people in different areas that I can connect you with.
And that's it. And you were highlighting the building blocks of our community. And like you said, I saw President Schlissel and President Simon here. We have U of M Flint, and we have Michigan State University in town. We have, the Cultural Center, which has the 6th largest art school connected to a museum in the country. We have Flint Symphony Orchestra. We have, a Baker College. We have a Mackinac College. We have a lot of infrastructure that towns like Flint normally don't have. And so that's been helped build by philanthropy, but those are the building blocks for what we can proceed forward. You guys,
people don't know.
We have an award-winning master plan that was just completed a year ago. So it's current, it's up to date. It was the first time we did it since 1967 or whatever, but
Better late than never.
But we've got it now. So we do have these building blocks, and there was a lot of momentum prior to this crisis. But I agree with the mayor. Pipes and jobs.
Right, and you know what Flint is, one of the other good things about Flint is we're a great size where you can see some immediate impact when these things start happening.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're working with is we've been focused on the Flint community schools for the last 3-4 years. The Mott Foundation has really dug in, and we've put about $35 million into the Flint community schools in the last 3 or 4 years. And we're looking at how to move that forward, and is there an opportunity to really take and bring some new infrastructure to the schools and create a model of brand new investment in the city of Flint for, the 10 schools that we do have, revamping them to a 21st century model to match the programming that we've been doing for the last, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and it's one thing that we've talked an awful lot about up at Mackinac about education, and there's been a lot of focus on Detroit public schools. But I think it's interesting, when we say pipes and jobs, but it is coming back to children and making sure the ones who were at that highest risk of lead contamination and poisoning, that they are the ones that are then going to be able to benefit from a lot of programs that are going to have to be put into place into the public schools.
One of the things that, one of the stories that hasn't really been told much is the work that has been done in partnership between the federal government Head Start and the state with the Great Start Readiness Program, Flint Community Schools with Bilal Tawab and Lisa Hagel at the Genesee County ISD, the number of early childhood education classrooms that have opened up. And then the ISD actually took to the streets knocking on doors to find kids. You know, where anybody who has a preschool age kid, we want to get you in as a part of this. And then the early on for the 0 to 3 population as well. That these are things that are being deployed or have been deployed right now, and the schools play an important part of that. One of the things that you'll see in this budget coming up, though, is a new concept, which is kind of the EduCare model, and it's that 0 to 5 population and really getting kids and families ready for school, a more intensive type of a program, and something that Mott has been really supportive of. The concept they've been supportive of, and something that we're very interested in looking at, see if we can maybe break some cycles and do something new and more intensive that could not only provide kids with better opportunity, but also to make sure that kids are going into school ready to learn, not having to catch up once they get there to kindergarten, and maybe even create a better pipeline of students for Flint Community Schools itself, which 2/3 of kids from Flint do not go to Flint Community Schools. And so this is an area where all of these things fit together. And so when we talk about jobs, well, better have your education system in good shape to fill those jobs, and economic development and the base level of services that you need to be successful. I mean, these are all part of the plan, and it's exciting to see them happening in a community that the mayor's right. I mean, Flint is, compared to where I'm from, it seems like a big community, but it's not that big, and so you can really make a big difference, and with these efforts, I mean, you can really see things happening, and that's what's exciting.
Mayor, you want to
I
add
wanted
to
to
that?
say something about education as well, because one of the things we know is we want to keep people in Flint, and our young people are one of our greatest assets, and usually what happens is they either go away to school and don't come back, or they stay for school and don't come back. And so one of the things I know, I believe the governor has talked about it, Magic Johnson has talked about it, and we've heard about the Kalamazoo Promise and the Lansing Promise, and getting something like that, you know, the Flint Promise, so they can be guaranteed a 2-year or 4-year education in the state of Michigan.
All right, we just have a couple of minutes left, and I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to kind of to give me a look where we're going to be in about maybe 3 to 6 months from now. What can we expect to see? And Ridway, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Well, in 3 to 6 months, I think, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, big focus on early childhood. We're going to roll out community education in all of the Flint Community Schools. We're currently in 5 schools, so that means that Flint Community Schools will be the best place for kids in Flint. You know, they'll have health navigators, wraparound services, all the things needed to help the kids succeed after school programs, which have been in schools for a while. So, you know, education is going to be our big focus for the next 6 months, and then, you know, getting to economic development recovery after that.
All right, Lieutenant Governor Calley, why don't you go ahead and give us what we can expect to see, what we can look for now in the next 3 to 6 months in Flint?
Well, I'm most excited to see the actual construction and infrastructure. That's something that I think is going to do so much to raise the spirits across the city. I wanted to share with you that the mayor had mentioned briefly the Riverfront Restoration Project, and as that comes together, this is another partnership, state, local, potentially federal, and philanthropic community with Mott. But it's the idea of connecting all the good things that are happening downtown and creating a corridor all the way to Kettering University, which is another very dynamic place. And so this restoration of that riverfront, I want you to think about what happened in Detroit with the Riverfront Conservancy and all the work that happened there, and then the private sector investment that came along with it. This is one of the things over the course of the next few years I want to ask people to watch and to look for. Is the type of impact that this project that is really coming together well from a lot of different agencies partnering to make it happen.
Mayor Weaver, I'm going to let you have the last word.
Well, you know what,
here
I was
today.
going to say that actually they've summed it up very nicely. I have to say we have a short construction season, so we're going to be busy with lead service line replacements in the next, you know, as long as we can, as long as winter holds out, that's what you're going to see from us. But we're going to be continuing to partner and work with the private sector. That's something that we have to do. I hope that's going to be stronger. We're going to continue working with the state because that's what we have to do. And you talked about the issue of trust. I hope people will see that that's gotten better, that we've gotten stronger, and that we're continuing to move forward. And what I like about the people of Flint is they've really gotten involved with what's going on with local government and being a voice. So we're going to continue to speak up and speak out and try to move Flint forward. That's what we'll be doing.
All right, Mayor Karen Weaver, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, Ridway White from the CS Mott Foundation. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and attention.